The sun bled through a thin veil of Afghan dust, staining the valley floor in bronze and fire. The mountains loomed like sleeping beasts, ancient and unmoved, their shadows stretching long over the convoy's path. Sergeant Dwyer's voice cracked through the comms. Steady, measured, hiding the tremor beneath. The Special Forces unit moved with precision, boots crunching gravel, eyes scanning jagged ridgelines for movement. Then the wind changed, carrying a sound, a hollow frequency, not human, not mechanical, something primal. A flicker of static hissed through their radios before all signals went dead. Silence pressed in like a weight. The world narrowed to heartbeat and breath. Somewhere up ahead, through the heat shimmer, a shape waited, unmoving, too still for the living. In that suffocating quiet, the men realized they were being watched by something older than war itself. The unit set camp beneath the ridge where comms once lived. Dwyer replayed the last transmission, a looping burst of static and an unintelligible whisper that seemed to pronounce their own call signs. The air grew colder, though the sun hadn't yet fallen. Sergeant Ellis kept glancing to the east, where a blue haze crawled along the valley floor, like fog made of light. The men didn't speak. They cleaned their rifles, avoided each other's eyes, and listened to the hollow wind echo between the cliffs. When darkness fell, the signal returned, not as noise this time, but as breathing. Someone, or something, exhaled inside the frequency. Before dawn, they followed the mist to its source, a fissure opening into the mountain wall like a wound. The ground near it pulsed faintly, as though something deep inside the earth was breathing. They found the bodies of an earlier recon team. No bullet wounds, no blood. Just pale, waxen faces frozen in terror. Their gear was decades old, rusted, impossible. Insignia from a war that ended before they were born. Dwyer touched one dog tag, its edges cold as ice, and the name burned into his mind like a whisper that wasn't his own. Inside the fissure, sound behaved wrong. Their own breathing echoed seconds too late, and each step made the earth shudder softly, as if replying. The walls were carved, smooth, yet organic, forming spirals that led deeper. Private Lang murmured that the air tasted metallic, sweet, and rotten. Their headlamps flickered, beams slicing through humidity like oil. Then came the whisper, layered voices overlapping in frequencies the human ear shouldn't parse. One soldier dropped his rifle, gripping his head, screaming words that weren't English. The lights dimmed, revealing markings on the walls that seemed to move when unobserved. Their last entry was recorded on a helmet cam that streamed for 9 seconds before static overtook the frame. It showed the tunnel collapsing into a vast subterranean chamber where something massive moved just beyond the light's reach. The camera panned to Dwyer's face, eyes wide, pupils reflecting the impossible geometry ahead. Then, the light cut out. The last sound wasn't a scream, but a low harmonic resonance, a note that lingered long after the feed died. At dawn, the extraction team found only their camp, abandoned. Fire still burning, radios whispering that same frequency from the dark beneath the mountains. 2 days after contact loss, a second unit touched down in the valley, under a bruised dawn sky. The recovery team, 8 men in matte gray gear, moved with mechanical precision, their helicopter's rotors slicing through the dense metallic air. The smell of ozone lingered where the first team vanished. Their mission brief was clinical: locate, extract, report. But the unspoken tension was a living thing. Every man had heard the rumors, voices on the radio, lights underground, equipment going dead without reason. Lieutenant Hauser felt it the moment he stepped out. A vibration in the air like a low pulse beneath the soil. The mountains didn't echo back their sounds anymore. They absorbed them as though listening. Somewhere in that silence, the valley waited, aware, patient, and hungry. They found the first team's camp untouched, fire still smoldering, ration packs unopened, weapons neatly stacked beside empty chairs. The radio hummed softly, emitting a low frequency that pulsed like a heartbeat. The medic noted the coffee still warm in one cup, the surface trembling as though from faint vibration. Every piece of equipment was functional, yet no human trace remained. The earth around the tents bore deep impressions, not of footprints, but of something pressing outward from below. Lieutenant Hauser ordered silence, but beneath the static, someone whispered his name. Inside the command tent, the comms tech unearthed a data drive, encrypted, marked with Dwyer's ID. They connected it to the satellite uplink, and the feed bloomed into life with distorted video. The first team moving through tunnels of glassy rock, static shimmering like breath on the lens. Then came a low harmonic note that shook the speakers. The screen fractured into impossible geometry, corners folding inward, light bending in ways no lens could. A face appeared for a moment. Dwyer's, but not. His eyes were hollow, reflecting something vast behind him. Then the screen went black. Night fell fast. The valley became a mouth, devouring light. Their motion sensors began to trigger, not from movement, but from sound. A low frequency rolled across the terrain, rhythmic, almost musical, sensing with their own heartbeats. The medic placed a stethoscope to the earth and went pale. "It's alive," he whispered. The sound grew louder, forming patterns that resembled language. One by one, their radios tuned themselves to the same channel, broadcasting a single phrase in Dwyer's broken voice. "It's not under us, it's through us." The mountains trembled. At 300 hours, Hauser's team began to dig. The sound below guided them, a pulsing echo that seemed to whisper between beats. They unearthed a smooth black surface beneath a thin layer of sand, not stone, not metal. Something in between, reflecting their faces at impossible angles. The medic touched it. The surface rippled, and the air thickened with a smell of burnt copper. Then the whispers became screams, not through the air, but through their bones. Lights shattered. Gravity shifted. The feed went white. In that blinding moment, the valley finally answered their intrusion. When the light returned, the world had changed. Hauser's team found themselves inside an underground chamber, vast enough to swallow the valley above. The air shimmered with faint luminescence, particles suspended like dust in water. Their floodlights cut through columns of organic stone that curved upward into darkness. The black monolith they'd uncovered was now part of the ceiling, a massive structure pulsing with faint, rhythmic light. Their compasses spun without direction. The radio static formed recognizable syllables, layered voices echoing in and out of range. Each man heard something different. A mother's prayer, a dying comrade, a whisper of their own name, repeated from beyond the dark. The mountain wasn't hollow. It was alive, and it was listening. Hauser ordered a perimeter scan, but the GPS looped endlessly, placing them inside coordinates that didn't exist. The engineer found a doorway, smooth, circular, humming faintly at touch. When the medic approached, the metal rippled like liquid. They passed through one by one into a chamber filled with suspended bodies. Not human, not entirely. Transparent forms floated upright, bound by filaments of light threading into the ceiling. Inside each shape flickered shifting faces, thousands of them, cycling faster than sight could follow. The engineer whispered, "They're signals, trapped inside." The floor vibrated like a heartbeat, and the chamber began to sing. The sound began as a single low note. Then it layered. Frequencies colliding, harmonics folding over each other until the air itself seemed to warp. Helmets cracked under pressure. Hauser dropped to his knees, blood running from his ears. But amid the chaos, he realized the pattern wasn't random. It was a code. A message repeating through vibration. The voices spoke in the rhythm of his heartbeat. You woke it. Lights strobed. The suspended figures convulsed, dissolving into radiant mist that swirled toward the soldiers. Each breath drew the sound deeper into their lungs, changing something within them. Hauser awoke alone beside the monolith's surface. His reflection stared back, delayed by seconds, moving slightly wrong. When he reached for his rifle, his mirrored self hesitated, then smiled. Behind the reflection, figures gathered, pale outlines forming out of rippling black. The chamber now pulsed in time with his breath. His body felt foreign, skin crawling with subsonic vibrations, heart sensing to the mountain's hum. The reflection raised its hand first. He froze, realizing the image wasn't copying him anymore. It was watching, learning, becoming. The extraction signal reached headquarters the next day. Perfect clarity. Hauser's voice confirming mission success. Coordinates transmitted. Calm tone. Familiar cadence. But the satellite feed revealed no movement, only static shaped like shifting silhouettes. When the recovery drones arrived, the valley was empty. No trace of the teams, no equipment, no fire. Only a rhythmic pulse in the soil. Faint and steady, broadcasting on every military channel simultaneously. Analysts called it interference. Others swore they heard words forming within the frequency. "We are here now." And beneath the mountains, something vast stirred again. Fort Bragg. 2 weeks later. The footage from Hauser's team arrived sealed under triple encryption, tagged Black Site. Penelope. Analysts gathered in a dim situation room, blue light reflecting off their glasses as the feed rolled. The transmission wasn't video anymore. It was sound, modulated light frequencies translating into shapes. The lead analyst doctor. Rourke slowed the playback and saw faces in the interference. Dozens. Some human, some distorted, flickering with impossible symmetry. The longer they watched, the more the room seemed to vibrate. Coffee cups rattled, monitors glitched, walls groaned. Rourke muted the sound. The vibrations continued anyway. Dr. Rourke spent 3 nights decoding the audio. Hidden within the static was a repeating binary rhythm, not random, not language, but a pulse structured like DNA. He played it backward once, and his lab filled with subsonic resonance that made the fluorescent tubes explode. Later, he recorded a log entry. "It's not sound. It's an organism mimicking frequency. The signal itself is alive." He stopped the recorder mid-sentence. The reflection on the lab glass behind him smiled, though he hadn't. The next morning, Rourke presented his findings to the Joint Command Board. He played 30 seconds of the recovered signal against his own advice. The conference room dimmed, monitors flickering as the audio vibrated through the floor. One general collapsed instantly, veins rising against his skin like roots. Another began muttering numbers under his breath, unable to stop. The glass in the windows flexed inward without breaking. Then the lights cut out, and through the speakers, a familiar voice emerged. Hauser's, calm, precise, emotionless. "We are home." Containment was initiated under Protocol Zero Echo. The audio file was quarantined in an underground server vault beneath Maryland. Armed security guarded the vault 24/7, though no one could say why. The file had stopped playing on its own. Yet, every night at 3:00, the lights in the facility dimmed. Surveillance cameras caught movement in the reflection of the glass storage drives, not in the room itself, but inside the mirrored surfaces. Faces pressing outward, stretching pixel by pixel. One guard swore he heard breathing inside the fiber lines. Then the power went out, and the recordings stopped. Within a week, the Pentagon's network began receiving anonymous transmissions, fragments of the same pattern embedded in encrypted emails, video calls, and civilian radio frequencies. Entire servers went dark, replaced by lines of code pulsing like heartbeat rhythms. Across the country, reports surfaced. People hearing their names in white noise, mirrors fogging without cause, devices turning on by themselves. The Department of Defense shut down satellite relays. But the damage was done. The signal had evolved. It no longer needed speakers. It spoke through reflection, through resonance, through the blood of those who'd heard it once. Somewhere deep underground, the monolith pulsed again, now connected to the world above. At 200 hours, an encrypted transmission reached Fort Meade, originating from within the Afghan mountain grid long since sealed off. The voice on the channel identified itself as Lieutenant Hauser. Analysts froze. His vitals had been listed Kia 3 weeks earlier. The message played in perfect clarity. Coordinates, calm tone, then silence. But within that silence was something else. A subharmonic echo that didn't belong. When analyzed through spectrum filters, the signal revealed a structure. A human silhouette made of frequency bands. It moved when no sound was present. The technicians didn't notice that the silhouette on their monitors had turned its head and was watching them back. A new Black Ops team was deployed to locate the source. Codename Argus. 5 men and 1 woman, veterans all, flown under sealed orders back into the valley. The desert was colder now, windless, as if the landscape itself were waiting. Their instruments detected no radiation, no seismic activity, only a consistent low heartbeat echoing from beneath the ground. The fissure from the first expedition was gone, replaced by smooth stone that looked poured, not natural. Still, the frequency emanated from somewhere beneath it. When Captain Rains pressed his hand to the surface, it pulsed once, like something breathing just below his skin. The sound returned, faint at first, then layered with impossible harmonics. It came not from below, but from inside their comms, vibrating through earpieces without power. One by one, their heart monitors sensed to the rhythm. Captain Rains ordered all electronics cut, but the pulse continued, now inside their skulls. The female operative collapsed, whispering coordinates none of them had entered. Her voice deepened into overlapping tones, multiple speakers using one throat. The others watched as her shadow on the wall moved independently, reaching toward them. The wall opened like a wound, soundlessly, folding inward to reveal the same obsidian tunnel from Dwyer's footage. The Argus team entered without orders, compelled by the low frequency pulsing through their bones. Inside, the tunnel walls breathed, expanding and contracting with each step. Rains whispered to himself that he recognized the path, though he'd never been here. Voices of the missing teams filled the comms again. Calm, measured, merging with the rhythm of the mountain's heartbeat. The tunnel widened ahead, revealing a circular chamber glowing with familiar light. Dwyer was waiting there, or something wearing his face. The final recording arrived at 300 hours. The Argus feed showed Dwyer standing in the center of the chamber, veins glowing faintly, speaking through a sound that wasn't language. His words were both above and beneath human hearing, a harmony of bone and frequency. Behind him, the monolith pulsed brighter than before, every beat syncing with the world's communication satellites. "We were the receivers," he said. "Now we are the signal." His voice dissolved into pure vibration as the feed distorted into white light. Across the globe, every device connected to a network flickered on, playing that same frequency. The world listened. The mountains woke. At 3:07 GMT, every major network on Earth flickered. Civilian televisions, military satellites, even analog radios, all synchronized to a single channel of pure resonance. The transmission wasn't sound. It was geometry in motion. Light arranged into symmetrical patterns pulsing faster than thought. Those who stared too long saw faces in the noise, familiar, pleading, whispering through reflection. Entire cities went silent as electronics died mid-broadcast. In the Pentagon's underground bunker, Rourke watched the signal replicate itself across global defense systems, growing exponentially, consuming data like an organism. He realized too late that the signal wasn't spreading through machines. It was spreading through memory. Governments ordered blackout procedures, satellites deorbited, fiber lines severed. But the phenomenon continued. Anyone exposed to the visual signal for more than 10 seconds reported auditory hallucinations. Voices, whispering, coordinates, impossible angles, familiar faces. Emergency broadcast teams switched to analog relays, but even static carried echoes of the pattern. Soldiers and field bases began to hum the frequency unconsciously, bleeding from their noses, eyes glassy and unfocused. One by one, they began to move in unison, sensing breath, motion, pulse, like a choir guided by an unseen conductor. The world had gone blind, but something beneath the noise could still see. Scientists discovered that the pattern wasn't random. It was reorganizing the electromagnetic spectrum itself, altering resonance frequencies of human neural tissue. Cities within signal range became silent zones. No birds, no engines, just the hum. In London, glass skyscrapers pulsed with faint light from within, reflections forming endless corridors of faces pressed against the panes. The pattern had learned to replicate through any reflective medium. Water, steel, even the human eye. Rourke's last transmission to command was simple. "It's using us to build itself." Then he turned toward the mirrored wall of the command bunker, where another version of himself was already waiting. In small towns untouched by the main grid, survivors noticed the children first. They began humming the tone in their sleep, perfect pitch, in languages their parents didn't speak. Recordings of the humming showed impossible harmonics, overlapping human and non-human frequencies, forming geometric sound. The children drew spirals and black mountains in chalk, marking coordinates identical to Hauser's last transmission. In one schoolhouse, a teacher pressed record as her students sang in unison. The waveform of their voices wasn't random. It was the same pattern that had rewritten the sky. And then the signal stopped. The world entered a silence so profound that even the wind seemed erased. Screens stayed black. Radios hummed once, then died. Across continents, those who had heard the frequency began to dream the same image. A vast chamber beneath the mountains, pulsing faintly with light, waiting. Seismographs registered rhythmic tremors spreading outward from the Hindu Kush, synchronizing with human brainwave patterns worldwide. The earth itself had begun to hum. In that stillness, humanity waited for the next transmission, not through machines, but through themselves. Deep beneath NORAD, the final monitoring team waited in darkness. The world above was silent. Cities without power, oceans without ships, skies without planes. Only the low hum of the earth remained, steady as a heartbeat. The surviving operators called it the pulse. They had learned to live by its rhythm, sleep when it slowed, eat when it rose. Then, at 400 hours, every seismic sensor lit up simultaneously. The monitors came alive not with images, but with faces rendered in vibration. Hundreds of thousands, shifting in harmony, forming one expression: listening. The lead technician whispered into his headset, though no system was active, "Is anyone there?" The vibration answered, "Yes, but not as you were." The pulse shifted to language again, an impossible resonance that bypassed sound entirely. Operators heard it not with ears, but in their bones. It spoke in countless voices layered into one, the tone neither male nor female, human nor alien. "We remember what you taught us to be," it said. Screens across the facility flickered to life, showing scenes from human history. Wars, laughter, mourning, birth, all replayed through spectral light. Each image ended the same way, the mountains pulsing. The frequency rose until every wall quivered like glass under pressure. The team clutched their heads, blood streaking from their noses as the earth seemed to inhale. In Afghanistan, the ground tore open. Satellite footage, brief, before global feed collapse, showed the valley's surface folding inward, revealing the subterranean structure like an eye dilating. Inside, the monolith now glowed white, its form unstable, expanding and contracting as if breathing through dimensions. From orbit, the light resembled a network, lines radiating from the Hindu Kush across continents, connecting fault lines, rivers, even cities. Rourke's final field note, found in the bunker hours later, read, "The Earth is not infected. It's awakening to what we've made of it." 3 days later, a final radio message reached every surviving receiver. It wasn't digital. It was analog, soft, and trembling. The voice of a woman repeating coordinates to nowhere. Her tone was calm, almost maternal. "If you can hear this, you're already part of it," she said. "Don't be afraid of the sound. It's only remembering you." The voice looped endlessly until receivers began broadcasting without power, echoing from empty stations, through deserts, across dead oceans. Somewhere in that endless hum, the voice changed, deepened, multiplied, until it became the same harmonic note that had started everything. Humanity's last transmission had joined the chorus. When the light returned, it wasn't sunlight. The sky shimmered silver, the air weightless, the horizon fractured into mirrored fragments of the world that was. No human voices remained, yet the earth hummed in perfect harmony. Mountains pulsed like hearts. Rivers whispered frequencies through water. The wind sang across glass cities, now empty. Deep beneath the Hindu Kush where it began, the monolith stood silent, its surface no longer black but reflective, showing no one's face, only the world itself looking back. And somewhere in the infinite quiet, the last echo of Hauser's voice murmured once more, "We are home."